Hi, I am here with Robert Jackson, who is a local Salford lad, and he has gone off and performed in shows, loads of different shows, from Brief Encounter, which I saw and it was incredible, Kiss Me Kate, to the Threepenny Opera, The Railway Children. Robert has done this all across the UK in brilliant venues such as Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, which just is so impressive. Robert is now coming back home to Salford, and as you do, he's bringing the Royal Shakespeare Company with him to perform in Julius Caesar at the Lowry from the 20th to the 24th of June. And we are very, very excited to bring you home, Robert. So thank you for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get straight into this story, Julius Caesar. Now, when we say Shakespeare, it's like I've said the S word. Some people kind of go, oh, it's Shakespeare. Other people just love it and fly with it. But it's always about the story, isn't it? And Julius Caesar is one heck of a story. It's quite relatable right now with all its politics. So for people who might not know or think they know but aren't quite sure, what can you tell us about the story?
So Julius Caesar is essentially a political thriller. At the beginning of the play, Julius has just come home from war, triumphant. He's defeated his arch rival Pompey, and he's back in Rome. And essentially the power has gone to his head, and there is a very real chance that he wants to be more than emperor, and he wants to be king. And there's a group of politicians who are friends of Caesar's who get together and essentially say that this can't be allowed to happen, and they feel the only way that they can stop this from happening is to assassinate him. And so by the midway point, that assassination has taken place, and then the second part of the play is really looking at the repercussions of their actions as the world around them starts to crumble and war ensues, and they realize that they actually haven't gotten away with it as perfectly as they maybe thought that they would.
Yeah, and you are kind of involved in this in two different roles. The first one, Flavius, he kind of gets shunned quite quickly because he's not really agreeing with what's going on.
Yeah. So Flavius is in the first scene, and he is a tribune of Rome. He and another character, Marullus, are quite vocal about being anti-Julius Caesar, and that wasn't allowed to happen. And so it's fair to say they disappear quite quickly. There is a line that says that Marullus and Flavius are put to silence, and so you can kind of take from that what you will. So we only see Flavius in one scene, and then I come back, and for the rest of the play I play Cinna, the conspirator, who is relatively high up the pecking order in terms of the conspirators. The first time you see Cinna, he's going to Cassius and saying we need to get Brutus involved, and he's quite instrumental in bringing the conspirators together. And he then stays with Brutus all the way through until the bitter end, really. So yeah, they're the two characters I play.
And there's a whole other interesting set of characters with the chorus. And what's been really interesting about this show is that you're taking the chorus from the community in each place that you stop at, aren't you? So how does that kind of impact rehearsals? Does it kind of keep you all on your feet as actors as well?
Yeah, so it was a little bit different when we were in Stratford, because we were there for longer. We had 3 teams of community chorus members, and they would rehearse with us for the final few weeks of rehearsals before we opened. And so we spent a lot of time with them, and they would then rotate and sort of perform throughout the week. But since we left Stratford and we went on tour, we've only been in venues for 1 week at a time. So we've had one team of community chorus who have joined us. So our associate director will go on to our next venue the week before the cast arrive to get them up to speed and to work with them. And then when we get into tech on the Tuesday, that's our first time of meeting them. And so we then have all day on Tuesday with them to kind of get to know them and work them into the show. And then they're with us throughout the whole week. And they're amazing. Like, they are so actively involved in the community in a whole range of different ways, whether it be teachers or charity workers, or we had the mayor of Stratford, we had the sheriff of Nottingham. We've had a whole range of people working with us, and they're a really important part of our production. And it's been really lovely kind of getting to spend a bit of time with them backstage and get to know them a little bit. But yeah, they've been fantastic. They've really embraced it, and they add a new dimension to the play.
It's a brilliant idea. I love it. I love it.
I think when Atri, who's our director, was interviewing for the job of director for Julius Caesar, one of the questions he was asked is, how are you going to make this more accessible for the communities that you go to? And it was his idea to bring people from the community in. And it's been brilliant. It's been a real joy getting to know these people and work with them.
Yeah, and it's basically, it's kind of this brilliantly new, it's a traditional play, but you've got all these like little just subtle contemporary twists throughout that really, like you say, make it accessible for audiences. And another way that that's been done is by taking the characters of Brutus, Cassius and Octavius, and instead of them being played by the traditional sort of male roles as it was written, you've got non-binary and females playing these parts as well. So obviously that's giving it a fresh set of eyes from the people playing those parts. Does that kind of have a ripple effect through the performance and open up new opportunities for the way that the whole thing can be interpreted?
I think so. You know, I think swapping gender roles in Shakespeare isn't necessarily a brand new thing. It's been happening for a little while, but I think because this is a political play, we had a lot of conversations in rehearsals about the differences between being a man in power and a woman in power, and what that means. And so I think it was really interesting for Talisa and Annabelle, and there's quite a few of the guys in the cast who are playing characters that were traditionally written as men, and so I think it's been a really interesting time for them to explore what it means being a woman in power, a woman of colour in power, and the different challenges and difficulties and the stigmas that are attached to that. So yeah, it's opened up a lot of really interesting conversations.
Yeah, and I think another interesting conversation that I've kind of been hearing on the grapevine is the setting of this whole thing. So again, it's another contemporary twist on it, and I believe there's a revolving cube, and each side kind of represents something different. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the play, you have this huge, I think it's 5 meter squared cube on stage, which takes up a lot of the playing space. And as you say, it revolves. So on different sides, you've got either projection screens, you've got Brutus's house, you've got the backdrop of the Senate. But then as the play goes on and as the world starts to fall apart, the cube disassembles. And so what starts off as this, you know, perfectly intact, huge cube on stage, which we then use throughout the play, by the end, it's essentially just a shell of its former self. But yeah, during the battle sequences in the second half, it's spinning round and round and round. So visually, it's quite remarkable to watch because it's this huge structure which takes up a lot of the playing space. But yeah, as I say, we use it for projections, the Senate, houses, all kinds of things.
It sounds quite symbolic that as well, like you say, that it's breaking apart as things around you crumble and break apart. And
that's one of the big things to play. You know, by the end of the play, it's a very different world to the one that we started in. You know, time has passed. We have been in wars in various countries across Europe. Yeah, so it is quite symbolic that by the end of it, you're essentially just looking at a steel shell rather than this perfectly intact cube that we started off with.
And another thing I wanted to ask you regarding symbolism is another thing that I've been hearing is obviously in Julius Caesar, there's a lot of blood that is spilled.
Yes.
Obviously, blood is normally red. In this production, it's black blood that's spilled. And there's been quite a few talking points of, is it symbolic of the politics around oil? Is it something else?
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us, or is it open to interpretation?
I think it is very much open interpretation. It was a huge part of the whole design. And so all of the production pictures with Talisa where she's crying blood, which is black, they were all taken before we started rehearsals. And so it was the director and the designer's vision from the very beginning that the blood would be black. And I think you're right, you know, it can be oil, it can be representative of corruption, of ink, but I think some people just find it quite striking that they're seeing black blood rather than red blood, and I think it will mean something different to everybody, really. It certainly gets stuck on your hands. I'm kind of black blood lingering in fingernails and paws, which will probably
finding it everywhere days later.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, with Shakespeare, we obviously know that the language, or maybe people don't know, but the language is so embedded in our own language today. And there's so many quotes. Obviously, even with this production, you've got the Friends, Romans, Countrymen, lend me your ears. They're very misquoted. It's all Greek to me. It's not quite what's said in the play, is it? Do you have, either from Julius Caesar or from any kind of Shakespeare play, sonnet, anything, a favorite quote or something that you like to say? Because there's some corkers out there, there's some brilliant ones.
Yeah, there are. I think the one from the play, which I think really resonates with me, is Brutus says, "The abuse of greatness is when it disjoins remorse from power." And I think in this day and age, it is such a turbulent time politically at the minute, and I think just to say the abuse of greatness is when it disjoins remorse from power. It's so resonant, and I think you can apply that so well to 21st century politics. And like Talisa says it beautifully in the play, but I think that is possibly the most powerful line for me from Julius Caesar. But personally, there are too many to choose from.
There is, isn't there? There's. It's like I teach students, and if I'm doing it, it's like you're trying to go through them and say, well, this is Shakespeare. This is Shakespeare. There's so many. Yeah. How do you go about learning Shakespeare? So for any young students out there, or anyone who's rehearsing a play, or maybe just learning quotes for a literature exam or something, obviously, once you've got the meaning behind it, it becomes quite crystal clear, but it's lengthy, it's wordy, it's very different. Any tips on how people can learn Shakespeare? I think
first and foremost, you need to take the pressure off yourself and not assume that you are the only person who doesn't understand Shakespeare. We did our first read through on day 2, and we were very honest about the fact that we're working for the RSC, but I don't have a clue what this means. And I think you just have to allow yourself the time to figure out what it means. There are copies of the text which have translations available. You have the Shakespeare Dictionary, which is available. But I think you, first of all, just have to sort of take the pressure off and be like, you know what, I'm not going to understand all of this, but that's what the rehearsals are for. And what we did was we translated it into modern day speech so that we had a really clear understanding of what it was. And then there are obviously the certain rules that you have to apply which come with Shakespeare, whether it be iambic pentameter or whatever. But I think find out what it means first, what it means to you, and then you will be able to deliver the Shakespearean version with much more clarity.
Know what you're saying, and then it can come from the heart. Brilliant advice. So obviously you've mentioned the Royal Shakespeare Company there. I'm just dying to know, what has it been like working with? I mean, that must be like a whoa moment. What's it been like working with them? And also, what do you do if you kind of blank on stage? Because it happens to the best of us. I was doing a Shakespeare play many years ago, tried improvising my way out of it. It did not end well. So what do you do?
It's a tough one. So working with the RSC, it's been a dream come true. I've wanted to work with them since I was a teenager. I saw a production of Comedy of Errors at the Lowry back in 2007. And I think that was the first RSC production that I'd ever seen. And I was just like in awe of it. And then when I lived in London, when I was at drama school, I'd occasionally go up to Stratford to see work at the RSC. And, it's one of these companies where I feel like since I graduated from drama school, I've kind of been banging on the door, trying to get in to meet them. And so when this came in and when the offer for it came in, it was an incredible feeling because it's such a well-known theatre company. And, being in Stratford was a very, very special time, and getting to, work with these brilliant people has been amazing. But oddly, I think one of the big differences between the RSC and other theatre companies that I've worked with, you have the luxury of time much more with the RSC. We had 2 months rehearsals for Julius Caesar, which is unheard of. A lot of the work I've done in the past, you've had 4 weeks. And so, for 2 months, we had movement classes, we had voice workshops, we had text workshops, we had guest lecturers come in to talk to us about the source material of Julius Caesar. And so in a way, it was a bit like being back at drama school, and you think, I've got all of this time to play with, which you're not normally given. So it's been an amazing experience for me. It's one that I've taken great pride in, and I very much hope that I work with them again, because I've loved it. To be honest, coming on to your second question, touch wood, I've not dried in this production, so I don't know how I'd get around drying on stage. I assume, or I guess, you'd probably just have to hope that one of the other actors on stage could quickly jump in and save the day. If you've got a big monologue or a soliloquy and you're on stage on your own, I'm not entirely sure how you'd manage that one. But luckily, I've been all right on this job, so it's not something I've had to worry about yet. But I imagine improvising Shakespeare is no mean feat.
Yeah, no, then let's throw that out there, because I don't want that in your head.
If I tried, I'll blame you.
It's my fault now if it happens. Thank you so much for your time, Robert. We really appreciate it, and I cannot wait until obviously you come back to Salford, you come back home, and you bring this production, because there's like this, I don't know, there's like an aura of magic around it. It's very much being anticipated with excitement. So we cannot wait. It's at the Lowry from the 20th to the 24th of June. We will be there, and we will lend you our ears and make sure that we listen and are a very good audience. Thank you so much. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Be not deceived. If I have veiled my look, I turn the trouble of my countenance merely upon myself. Vexed I am of late with passions of some difference, conceptions only proper to myself, which give some soil perhaps to my behaviours. But let not therefore my good friends be grieved, among which number, Cassius, be you one. Nor construe any further my neglect than that poor Brutus, with herself at war, forgets the shows of love to all her friends.